Today I'm joined by none other than Jacob Rosenberg, a director, filmmaker, photographer, just all around documentarian, to talk about his new book, Right Before My Eyes. I've known of Jacob Rosenberg and his work through skateboarding. However, this book details not only his time documenting skateboarding, but also hip hop and the culture around it. This book is also self-published, which I'm excited about, and I talked to Jacob about as well, just to pick his brain as to why he chose to self-publish this book. So I'm super excited for you all to hear this conversation. We'll get into it right now.
My name is Jacob Rosenberg. I grew up skateboarding and filming and photographing skateboarding in a really essential era. And today I'm a filmmaker, director, documentarian, and I just published a book about my escapades and a really powerful decade in my life.
Everything that I know of you, it's clear that you're very diligent with the documentation and not always just with the camera, but sort of keeping record of everything. And I want you to talk to me about the archive. I've heard you be referred to as an archivist, and
Yeah,
I'm curious, one, where that comes from, but also
yeah.
where do you draw that line? Because at least for me, I feel like there's a fine line between an archivist and a
Yeah.
hoarder.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm an archivist and a hoarder. I guilty as charged. It's funny, this comes up so much, because one of the reactions to the book that people have is sort of FOMO, like saying to themselves, "Damn, I wish I kept more stuff." And I just don't know if that's true. You know, I've kept stuff for years, and it wasn't really until the book started to take momentum and shape, and I understood how to weave those elements into the form of the book. And then the book becomes innately my voice, because my voice is tethered to these objects and these artifacts that I find extremely valuable. I don't know where it comes from. I collected Legos and baseball cards as a little kid. I was super into comic books. I collected comic books. So maybe there's a sense of feeling a value of something that you're going to come back to, right? When you collect a baseball card, then you show your friends the card and something. And then once I got into skateboarding and there's all this ephemera and all this like tactile elements of it, it was like, oh, well, I don't, I want more stickers. I want more this. I want more that. And then I would have these things and I'd be like, well, I don't really need them right now, but I don't want to throw them away. So I think part of it is just this sense of, in the moment, I feel something so strong tying me to the moment that I want to keep some sort of an object from the moment. And I have these skateboard decks. The gallery show that I have right now, there's a photograph of me that sort of starts the book, and I still have that board, and that board's up on the wall. I mean, it's no one wants a Jake Rosenberg rider, from 1989. But I was like, I can't throw that away. That's part of my journey. So I don't know where it comes from, but I think it is a direct tether to the moment, and the utility of it has been the storytelling mind that I've developed as I've gotten older, and using those objects to bring the audience back to the moment. And a lot of the formation of the book was me just going through stuff and then sending a text to Greg Hunt, who was my editor. He'd be like, "That's crazy, you kept that." And a lot of stuff went by the wayside, and then a lot of stuff got bigger. And that's I think just a unique but essential part of my voice, is just that, how strongly I feel with these things.
It's such I feel like it's a perfect match for a photographer, a filmmaker, anyone who is documenting. It's the
Hmm.
same kind of thing where you're collecting the moments, you're collecting those
Yeah,
all of those memories. Where was the role of kind of collaboration? And you mentioned Greg Hunt. I
yeah,
feel like there are several people that you and I have mutual friends.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
know a couple of people, which is how we're here today.
yeah.
How was that, collaboration and putting stuff like this together, especially from such a personal
Yeah.
perspective and sharing all of the personal ephemera? Where was the collaboration in there? And I guess, what did that look like to you? And especially in finding the right
It
people to collaborate with?
it's fascinating to me, like who I was talking to and who I was leaning on in the process. So, Greg Hunt and I are old dear friends. In the era of the book, I was filming him, and I was a skate filmmaker, and he was a skater. And, since that era, he has become, an incredible skateboard filmmaker, an incredible artist, artist forward, artist first. And he's always been a collaborator who I've talked about the books and such with. And then I have another, really close friend who over the last, I think, 12 years or so, we've gotten very close to Stefan Vanasco, who is a fan of this era and I think a highly underrated, um, to a degree, underrated from a critical standpoint, like in a photographer. And he loves this era and he gets the era. So it's like Greg was sort of my premium art book critic editor, and I would say Stefan was sort of my confidant, where I would say, "Do you think this is cool?" And I have a strong gut, so I would be talking about things that I already felt good about. But my process is I kind of need to talk about it, and I need to hear someone say, "Yeah, yeah," and then I'm kind of like cool for a while, and then I don't need to go back to them, and then I'm excited to surprise them. And then the other collaborator in the process was my book designer and art director named Alexander Hansford. And Alexander is a magician, really incredible card magician, from the UK. And over the last 6 years, he's become a pretty dedicated and successful book publisher, designing and publishing magic books about cards and so forth. He has a brand called Neat Review. Alexander was sort of like my aesthetic, guide, where I kept thinking like I want it to fit in the Alexander conversation with his shape. And then, at the same time that I was working on the book, I was co-curating an exhibit in New York on the history of skateboard videos from the 90s. And I was co-curating that with my niece, who's the daughter of my mentor, Mike Chernasky. So Michaela Chernasky Holland, who's a young filmmaker, incredibly talented, her and I are curating this museum show. And innately, when I'm thinking of skateboard objects in a museum, I'm thinking of white background, um, presented with a placard and stuff you never see, right? Stuff that we know, like if we were talking about cultural museum worthy artifacts, a skateboard video is arguably one of the most important anthropological documents of the last 50 years of culture. I'm sort of a little bit in this curation headspace, which I think what we know about art is that you're sort of, you're caught in momentum, which is a beautiful experience to not be too aware of. But I just had this feeling that like, and I'm not sure what the first object that it was. I think it might have been one of the Hyro tapes, one of the blue tapes. And I was just like, oh yeah, for this, I just want to shoot it against white. I just want everything against white. And Greg Hunt echoed the same thing. He's like, you know what? This stuff with a little drop shadow, a little bit of a feeling, it just helps give it that. And I wanted the artifacts to take on the same significance or maybe greater significance than the imagery and the photography, right? I to be very clear, and this isn't like the humble brag thing, but I'm like, I've never fancied myself a great photographer. I always felt like I was in the right place at the right time, and I was super eager and ambitious. Now, in retrospect, those photographs are incredibly authentic, and the imperfections of the work makes it feel almost very hard to come by. The closeness that I had to my subjects, which a traditional photographer would just never be interested in or would never see them as peers. So much of my book is the viewpoint of the peers that I was with and my adoration of them. I just kept what we would do for layout is I would just grab objects and I would search and search and search. And I was like, well, the early stage of the book is really about photography and then video comes into play, and I'm going through my stuff and I find my manual to my 1989 Canon 8 millimeter, video 8 camera. And I just start opening the pages and I take a photo and I send it to Greg Hunt. And he's just like, dude, that's so ridiculous that you still have it. So then on the day where we, had all the artifacts, photographer Ray Zimmerman, Mr. Z, a close friend of mine through Christian Cooper. He came out and I had my art director from my commercial projects come, Gabriel Wilson, and we arranged everything and just went through and photographed it and really tried to treat it museum worthy.
I really hope you're all enjoying this conversation, and we will get right back to it after I take a minute to pay some bills and tell you about the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Speaking of self-publishing, Squarespace is a big part of how I self-publish all of my work myself, my zines, my photo books, even just selling prints, doing all of that with my online store through mattdayphoto.com. I made that site over 10 years ago with Squarespace before they were ever a sponsor. They've been the best all-in-one place to build a website for a very long time now. It's super easy to get started with a template, and if you want to add your photography there, you can just simply drag and drop all of the images that you want into the gallery, and you can fine-tune everything exactly how you'd like it. And if you need help with anything, they have 24/7 award-winning customer service that are always there to help. Give your work a place to live. You can do so entirely free at squarespace.com for a free trial. However, when you're ready to launch your website, go to squarespace.com/mattday. Use the code MATTDAY at checkout. That'll save you 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. So thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. Now we'll get back to the conversation. That aspect of the camaraderie within skateboarding and, sort of do it yourself or do it ourselves together in a way, was that something that you carried with you through, not just when it comes to making something like this, but everything else you've done and continue to do, as a director, filmmaker, everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the greatest qualities of being a skateboarder is that I don't want to overly use this momentum word, but like I really am feeling that that's this moment that I'm in is charged with momentum. We generate our own momentum as skateboarders. We have to push to move forward. So you step out of your house and you have to push. And I feel like in a very beautiful subconscious way, that is a choice. And what distinguishes skateboarding from other acts is this sense of failure, which is innately tied to the learning process. And then the reality that if you want to go skate with your friends, you're going to have to get out, you're going to have to go and you're going to do it. You don't just show up at a basketball court and strangers are there. And it is a literal act of generating your own momentum to go where you want to be and to find the people that you feel like you want to be around. There's this thing that I've learned over my life, which is when I want to do something, if I can get the right people in that raft with me, we can sort of paddle anywhere, you know? And I want all those people to feel the accomplishment of when we get there. This is one of the things that's really important to me. So I think with making the book, look, I mean, I have a lot of friends who are esteemed photographers, and they're like, "Your work is beautiful. It's so special." And I'm just like, "Dude, there's no publisher who's going to be interested in me. I don't have a name. Like in the culture, people know who I am, but no one really knows how much photography I shot. They know how much video I shot because that's like the thing forward, but they don't really know the minutia of my story there. So I just felt like no one would back this book because I'd have to be selling it. I'd have to be saying, well, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And they're like, well, I don't know. So to me, it was like, well, I think now is the time. I've been talking about it forever. I had this really weird lull with work where I wasn't landing jobs that I was pitching on. And I had this gap of time. And I really was scared. And I had this museum exhibit that I was co curating which was like tying me to my mentor and a lot of really uncomfortable feelings. And then I brought Alexander in to kind of help keep me accountable, right? He's now paddling the boat with me with Greg. So now I have like start of a deadline. And in this space between all these jobs, I just was like, it, like I just got to pay for this whole thing myself and I just got to do it. And I just got to be satisfied and I got to be happy. I have the right collaborators. And, it's that thing. I needed to ask for help. I needed to say, hey, Stefan, when it was time to do the prints for the gallery show, hey, man, will you do the prints? And he was like, what can I do to help you? And it was all self-generated. And I couldn't see it any other way. Do I wish it was another way? Like, I don't think so. I think that one of the beautiful things about generating your momentum and doing it with a small group of people is you just own your success. and you know that, like, packing. I mean, I've labeled and shipped every single book that went out to anyone who's bought it. I hired some friends to come and help me box everything. Every single sticker I have affixed. And I don't know what to say about that. It's beautiful. If I really thought about it, I'd get really emotional. The fact that people want it, the fact that you're able to share it. So I think that we as skateboarders have this gene, this thing that is developed in us, and there are rewards on the other side of that momentum that you can generate. But I don't know any other way than just doing it yourself. And as much as I wish it was easier, I just don't think that's as rewarding. The book is available directly from me if you go to jacobrosenberg.tv/shop. That's the page. There's a standard edition. That's the edition that you have there. There's also a collector's edition, which is almost sold out. I think we have about 5 more copies for domestic, and then I'm holding some for international. And if those don't sell, then I'll open them back up, and that's $200. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I just am super grateful for people who've engaged with the material and have resonated with it. And I have a show at Heavyweight Gallery in Los Angeles right now, so there are some prints that are available through that show. And we'll see if that show kind of might take me to some other places, which might expand the conversation of the book to other types
Right.
of things that we're discussing.
I hope you all enjoyed my conversation with Jacob Rosenberg, and big thanks to Jacob for making the time and sharing everything he did about this book. If you're interested in picking up a copy for yourself, you can do so using the links down below. And you can also be entered to win a copy of this book entirely for free. Jacob sent over 2 extra copies to give away to 2 of you, so big thanks to him. If you're interested in winning a copy of these, just leave a comment down below and make sure you use the word giveaway in the comment. And in about a week, I will reply to 2 of those comments to let you know that you've won a copy. So good luck to everybody. Thank you to everybody watching this video, but that's it for today. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.